Soca Mix 2020.
Time to shall the place.
So without further ado, let me turn the program over to Ria Jairam, N2RJ. Welcome, Ria.
All right, Ed, thank you very much. And thank you for a warm welcome to FairLawn. You know, I joined this club because Van, W2DLT, said it was a good idea, and I could see he was very much not mistaken. So I'm very glad to be a part of this. So let me share the slides. So the first one is, I'm going to give a small ARRL update for the second half of 2021. And I have company here, but never mind him. He's good. He's kind of cameoed in some of all my videos. But I like to encourage all of you who are on here, if you haven't done so as yet, subscribe to the FairLawn channel. They have a lot of these types of presentations, and they do a lot of good work. So I want to, see them grow. So the first thing, of course, is the number one topic that everybody's talking about that we don't need to name by name. But ARRL headquarters is now fully open. We're kind of at the point where, we want to reopen everything. So ARRL headquarters is now fully open. W1AW is allowing guest operators, believe it or not, with new precautions, right? They have some separation and such like that, but they're allowing people to go in. Visitors can visit the lobby of the administration building across the street. The lobby itself has a new display and a radio museum. So go check that out if you're in Connecticut. It's a nice thing. They brought all the radios from out in the back and they blew off all the dust, and it's good now. Here I'm going to show you a little video of when we did the ribbon cutting, and I'll explain to you why some of these people are wearing suits. And not the ones with the red badges, but the ones who look like they're important people. Okay. Here we have this person cutting the ribbon. That is a member of Congress for that district of Connecticut. And we spoke to him about some very important issues, as you can see next. You see in here, we have the Legislative Advocacy Committee. We also have Fred Hopengarten, and you know who Fred Hopengarten is. Fred Hopengarten is the author of Antenna Zoning for the Radio Amateur. And Fred here is having a very nice discussion about antenna legislation with this particular congressman. And we're also talking about how when there's a natural disaster like Ida, like Sandy, like all of the others, that amateur radio operators are, and even the thunderstorms we had the other day, those freak thunderstorms that roll through northern New Jersey, we have ham radio operators on the scene, and they are there providing valuable information about weather, particularly with respect to the National Weather Service's Skywarn program. And he was quite surprised. So we now have somebody advocating for us. And this is going to go, this is going to help us a little bit. And there are a number of people we talked to in Congress, a number of congressional allies too, and a number of relationships we'd like to build in Congress to further our goals. Here you can see Vice Director Bill Hudzik, W2UDT. He's there too. And he is there. So anyway, this thing here is a satellite display that they had in the back. They brought it out to the front. The new CEO, David Minster, he decided, that why leave all that stuff in the back for people to not see? Let it be the first thing when they first come in. And you have all these radios here, right, that are part of the radio museum. And I think the historical committee has been meeting. Bill Hudzik, W2UDT, the vice director for Hudson Division, he has also been working with the historical committee to get a lot of radio artifacts, get members to see a lot of the historical side of radio, because a lot of people enjoy the nostalgia. Here we have Ham-Aid, right? This is also in front where we have the displays of the Go kits and such. And I noticed something on one of these radios, which I'll show in the next slide. It was upside down. So I told him, I said, why is it upside down? They said, that's funny. But they put it right side up afterward. Steve Ewald, WV1X, he is the manager for, well, he's no longer field services manager, I believe. He actually does events and such now, Hamfest. The new field services manager, I think, is W8ZY. Here I am with David Minster, NA2AA. David is originally from Wayne. So he used to live in Wayne, and now he lives in Connecticut. And David is a very active and involved radio amateur, and you guys are already seeing a lot of good things from him. So let's hope he keeps it up. Here we have all the plaques. You know, my name is somewhere in there. In the division itself, the Hamfests are back. I've been to quite a number of Hamfests. I've been to FairLawn's Hamfest, which was, I understand, was quite successful when I was there. I was the only one with a pop-up tent, so I think that was good because it brought a lot of people to the ARRL, you know, and it was good to see them. So next year I'll bring the pop-up shelter again. Club meetings are returning to in-person in a number of clubs. The division awards, I'm actually going to put out the announcement. I definitely been putting it off, but I'm putting it out tomorrow. We had some, you know, we had to make sure with the venue and such that we're able to accommodate us. So we're on a little bit of a compressed schedule with that, but we're going to have the 2 years of awards. So feel free to nominate someone. I'm going to put out all the nomination instructions, send it to me, and I'll have the committee decide. And we're going to have the plaques. If we don't have the plaques at the awards, I'm hoping we get all the plaques in time for the awards luncheon in November. If not, we're going to present some certificates and we're going to give people their plaques via mail. We're going to ship it to them. Where we want everybody to get together to honor them. And, you know, we hope to see people in person. We are probably going to have, you know, some of it recorded, but we're not going to put the whole thing recorded. You know, I want to see people come there and support the league. And as I mentioned to Ed as well, we have the ad size and format. I'm going to be sending him that too. So hopefully I can see some from FairLawn in there as well. It's in Newburgh, New York, at the Cafe International. Hamfest. This was the Saratoga County Hamfest that I attended recently, and you know, that was quite interesting. There were a lot of people there. They brought me birthday cake, which was nice. So my birthday was a couple of weeks ago, and here you can see me walking around. You see. This is not going to be a long thing. All right. So you can see this is how Hamfests are now. I mean, there's probably considerably less people, but there are still people nonetheless. Yeah, I didn't ninja walk this Hamfest, so you could see the bounce when I walk. But yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So that was Saratoga County at Ballston Spa. So let's talk about legislative advocacy efforts. I did, like I mentioned, we are working on HOA antenna legislation. There's not much details about that because some of it is very strategic, but we are working on something. And when the time is right, we will let the membership know what our efforts are, you know, and how they can help. January 6th, you know, there's been a lot of talk about January 6th at the FCC, and we're not here to condemn radio amateurs, and we're not here to take a political position either way. Our job is to advocate with the FCC to tell them that, look, radio amateurs are not, you know, involved in nefarious stuff, and at the same time, radio amateurs have their freedom of speech and their freedom of political opinion. So we're not going to be involved in telling people that they shouldn't really do X, Y, and Z with amateur radio. We would hope that most radio amateurs do the right thing and not use use ham radio or their radio skills for bad things. At the same time, we're not going to treat people like children, so to speak, and tell them that how, don't do bad things, because we believe that people have that common sense. But the FCC did put out a third advisory, and that third advisory said, do not commit crimes with radio. And the FCC said that, so they will say what they say, and we're going to try to educate them best we can. $35 fee is coming. They're taking their sweet time. Most likely, as a matter of fact, it's almost certainty that it's going to come in the first half of next year. It's not going to come this year because they said they would give us 90 days notice. So that's coming. The ARRL wants to subsidize that $35 fee for youth, and we have more details of that being worked out. Frequency threats. There is some ongoing stuff with the 3.5 gigahertz. We did manage to save half of the band, so to speak, but at the same time, there are interests always looking at spectrum that we have access to, and they're asking, if they can get it on an exclusive basis for their use. We're trying to say, well, at least give us shared secondary access where you don't have deployments of anything, and maybe that'll work out. But we're still talking with the FCC on that. The symbol rate petition, which is to allow Pactor 4, WinLink using Pactor 4, that is still pending at the FCC. We don't know what they're doing with it, to be honest. It's getting frustrating at the point where they're just not saying anything. They're not doing anything. Yet every hurricane season, they'll grant us a waiver. Technician enhancement, they're sitting on that too. We're hoping they are going to move on a couple things we know, like, for example, protecting past address privacy and also email address privacy. That one, I worked with our council, our FCC council, on getting that at the attention of the FCC, and they are going to be definitely doing something with that. By the way, the FCC now requires email addresses for all applications. So if you have somebody without email, you might have to help them and get a temporary free email address, like a Gmail address, to file their license renewal or other thing, or even if they want to get an amateur radio license. The foundation, lots has been going on at the foundation. So I am a director of the foundation, and I am on the scholarship committee. We have brought back, so previously we used to dish out maybe $5,000, $500, $1,000 scholarships, which is nothing. The cost of higher education, and by the way, we don't just do it for college and university, we also do it for trade schools too. That's something people don't know, that some of these scholarships are restricted to 4-year college degrees, some are not, some are to pursue skilled trades, right, and other things. So bear that in mind. As long as it's education to have somebody progress in life, and it's a accredited program, that's an important thing. There are scholarships that will help out with that. Of course, a lot of our focus is on electronics and communications, but there are other things too, and there are people who studied things like biomedical engineering and such like that, and other things that they get ARRL scholarships for. So we have $15,000 scholarships, we have $25,000 scholarships, and more. The Amateur Radio Digital Communications Organization, they have given us a lot of money, and they are giving us a lot more money to do scholarships. They're also giving us money to do grants, and you can check out their website at amprl.org/giving. They do a lot of grants for a lot of things. So if you have a project, an educational project, or maybe you want to set up a mesh network or something, or you want to set up a school club station, or something like that, you can reach out to them. You could also reach out to us. Our grant is a little more restrictive though. We don't fund things like emergency communications, trailers and such like that. And Gary was saying, anyone noticed I was the only person under 60? Yeah, and the foundation and the scholarships are a big part of that. When we vet people for scholarships, I personally don't recommend people who just got a ham license to get a scholarship. We interview them now and we make sure that they're invested in amateur radio. So we're looking to encourage people to become active hams, and college age youth and college amateur radio clubs are actually thriving a lot these days. There's a sort of a renaissance in college amateur radio clubs. Member outreach has been focused on YouTube and videos. K5ATA of Good Game, Ham Radio and Outdoors, he was hired to replace Chris Pickle as the learning manager. Steve he was a teacher in Mississippi. He's now doing the ARRL learning, and he is now going to be integrating that with video and such. So it's a very exciting time. Bob Nauman, W5OV, he is now the new director of operations, replacing Norm Fusaro. But they have sort of a different role for him. He's originally from New Jersey, and his call sign was WN2OVE. There are a few vacancies on the website. We're actually kind of studying some of those vacancies and who we could hire and such like that. I can't disclose details of the HR stuff, but I'll tell you that there's a lot of interest in probably broadening our net as to who we could hire. We want to try to hire licensed hams. Obviously, we might be making some changes in terms of whether people have to live in Connecticut and such like that. And I can't say exactly what we want to do. We're always evaluating. All right, and with that, I will take some questions, and we could proceed to the next one.
Ria, this is Charlie, AC2ZU. Are the scholarships open to ARRL members who have grandchildren or children?
So you do not have to be an ARRL member to get a scholarship. The scholarships are open to anyone, and they're not only open to youth; they're open to people of all ages. But a lot of times, for some scholarships, they are restricted. But yes, so if you have like a grandchild or a child, that's in college and wants to avail themselves of a scholarship, they can do that.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? People could always send their questions to me, N2RJ at ARRL.org. They could send it to me. I don't mind taking questions. But people always send me questions, by the way. I prefer email, as I could reply. Phone, you could reach me on the phone too. My phone number's in there. During working hours, it's probably a little difficult, but after hours, I'm fine with that. All right, let's do the other presentation. Of course, I could always take questions afterward. I could always take it on another venue as well too. All right, so let me fire up this one and let me share the screen again. All right, so you can see this, right? This is amateur radio in Trinidad and Tobago. So you see our national flag there. It's red, white, and black. And I'll tell you, a lot of people don't know what it's for. So the red symbolizes the sunshine and the fire and the heat, right, of Trinidad and Tobago. The black symbolizes wealth, meaning we have a lot of oil and dirt as well too. So we have a lot of ways to get wealth. The white symbolizes water between Trinidad and Tobago. So we're two islands, one nation. And this is my YouTube channel. Check it out. You might find something. YouTube.com. Just look for N2RJ, or you look for Ria's Shack Ham Radio. And we're growing fast. We do a weekly live stream. And we do a lot of other stuff. Where exactly is Trinidad and Tobago? Well, we are in the Caribbean. We're in the southern part of the Caribbean. And on television, back when they used to sign off at midnight and sign on at 6 a.m. with the national anthem, they used to introduce Trinidad and Tobago. They say Trinidad and Tobago, the most southerly isles of the tropical Caribbean. So we are actually, you can notice here on the map, we are approximately between 10 and 11 degrees above the equator, we're approximately between 62 and 63 degrees west longitude. So we're pretty much the southern part of the Caribbean. You can see Venezuela right on the left side. And on a clear day, you can actually see Venezuela. You could probably see it better than you could see Russia from Alaska. That's a joke. All right, from Trinidad, about Trinidad and Tobago, it was first visited by Columbus, Christopher Columbus, in 1498. Yes, he did go there. The native tribes, there are native tribes, the Arawaks and the Caribs, right? You notice there's a bear called Carib. Well, it's named after the tribe. They're not owned by the tribe, but they just use that. Arawak. The Arawaks were farmers. They're vegetarians. The Caribs did farm some stuff, but the Caribs were, let me just put it this way, they were meat eaters, okay? And the Caribs were, they ate all kinds of meat. They were first ruled by the Spanish from Spain, and then the British, because the British had a large empire. The British came in 1797, of course the Spanish came in 1498. But the Spanish, being the Spanish, they brought a lot of French people there to own plantations and plant sugarcane and plant cocoa and plant coffee and plant a lot of different crops, right? We didn't have a lot of bananas. Bananas were on other islands. We had a lot of cocoa, coffee, and sugarcane. Sugar was a big crop. And I tell you all of this because this is important for the whole culture of the island and the economy, right? We're, of course, 2 islands, 1 nation. Home of steel band, calypso, and limbo, right? All of the above were invented here, right? And don't let anybody tell you it was invented in Jamaica because they're lying. Steel band, calypso, and limbo were invented in Trinidad and Tobago. The demographics, Indian, like me, about 35%, African, 34%, West African. You have Chinese, Syrian, European. You have the Arawaks and Caribs, very few Arawaks and Caribs because they got basically wiped out by colonization. You have different religions, all flavors of Christianity are represented there, Hinduism, Islam, and Baha'i. Major industries, oil and gas. You have byproducts, downstream byproducts of oil and gas, particularly ammonia. And then you have metals. They have a large steel plant over there. They make iron and steel. How do you get a license? Well, you can take an exam. I took the British exam because back then that was the only way to do it. Now they accept any exam. You can take the US FCC exams, or you could present your current license from the US, from the UK, or other countries. I think they take a bunch of other European licenses, or maybe Japanese, Chinese licenses too, I believe, because there's a large number of Chinese in Trinidad now, recent immigrants. Anyway, you fill out the form, right? On the right-hand side, I show you here, it's Form L2. It's available on the tatt.org.tt. You pay approximately $100 Trinidad and Tobago. That's about $15 US. The license is issued within 1 to 2 days and is valid for 1 year. I think now they're going to change the license term to 3 years, and you're going to have to pay $100 a year for 3 years. So that's $300 TT. If you are a resident or a citizen, you will get a 9 Zulu 4 or 9 Yankee 4. 9 Yankee 4 used to be with Morse code, but that may have changed now. I think they're actually going to make all licenses 9Y4. If you are a non-resident or non-citizen, you will get 9Y4 stroke your home call. The IARP, International Amateur Radio Permit, is valid there. So you can have an IARP, you can get that from the ARRL. And you go down there, you do have to talk to the local authorities first to operate there. Getting your equipment into customs is another story. So you have to be, you have to be careful with that. And I'll explain why in the next slide, actually. Yeah, you must specify all equipment, by the way. You can't just go and use any radio. You have to list the equipment. A lot of countries have that stipulation. We are very fortunate in America where we can just buy any amateur radio equipment and then we actually can use it as we want. Over there, you can pretty much use anything. If you have equipment that's non-certified, they will certify it. They definitely want you to list your equipment. There are no amateur radio dealers, right? Except Radio Shack. I think Radio Shack could bring down things. Everything is imported or bought used from locals. I mentioned the certification requirement, and Baofeng radios are certified now. Yeah, the local amateur radio society is the Trinidad and Tobago Amateur Radio Society, or TTARS. They have an agreement with the Scouts, right? So they actually were headquarters at the Scouting Association. They're headquartered in the capital city of Port of Spain. They're very, it's a small radio club, and they're actually not, they're the national society, but they do have as big a membership and as a bigger corporate structure as the ARRL. Since I began to serve at the ARRL, I'll tell you, ARRL has a sprawling corporate structure compared to some of these radio clubs in other countries. Unfortunately, you can see on the side here, this guy looks like he's being arrested for something. Well, he got arrested because he and 114 others went into Parliament and with AK-47s, and they decided to conduct an attempted coup in 1990. This is Yassine Abu Bakr. He got away, by the way. The government signed an amnesty deal with him, and he was able to get away scot-free. I think that was a huge mistake, but whatever. He ran an organization called the Jamaat al-Muslimin, and he had ties with Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. They drove a car bomb into police headquarters, and they put Parliament under siege. They coordinated their attacks using CB radios. So the government immediately said, you know what, radios are tools of terrorism. We have to restrict and regulate them. That's how things start. So now when you import equipment, you have to put a bond into it. And that's a complication I was talking about with customs. You usually have to pay a bond, and it's refunded when you leave. Most times, sometimes not. So it's tough to get equipment in. But you know what? If you talk to the local radio club, they can help you out. So all is not lost, really. There are approximately 250 licensed hams with a population of 1.4 million. Most of ham radio activity on the islands are on 2-meter FM. They have repeaters 146.94 and 147.93. That's run by the National Radio Society, TTARS. With call sign 9Y4 Tango Tango. They have a net Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Well, 8 p.m. their time. I want to say Eastern, but it's really Atlantic time or something. They have a repeater in Tobago. They have a few other repeaters now owned by other individuals. They have 2 repeaters owned by the National Emergency Management Agency. Yeah, you want to know something? You'll notice this one's on 147.800. What about this one, 148.800, which is outside of the 2-meter band? Well, in the late 90s, the Telecommunications Authority decided to grant this special exemption and special license for this repeater for NEMA, the National Emergency Management Agency, to have an additional repeater that would not take up space in the amateur band. However, amateurs are allowed to use it for emergencies and drills. So it's kind of like how in the United States we have the Alaska emergency frequency. Well, here they have a special frequency. You have to modify your radio to use it. They have HF net. I think they still have this net. And then they have an informal gathering on 14.220 or 14.194. I'm not so sure they still have it, but that used to be the case. You can see like what a typical local shack looks like. This is my friend Leon 9Z4BM. His shack. I think it kind of looks this way, similar to this. His equipment is not brand new, but he likes to build a lot of antennas out of local aluminum or aluminium. He gets it from the local metal supplier, and then he fabricates antennas. He's also a big time satellite operator, and he likes HF and weak signal VHF. Here you can see him climbing a commercial tower. He does that too. And here you can see his QSL card. He has the satellite QSL card and a regular QSL card, and you can see his antenna building page, 9z4bm.tripod.com. This was my mentor. He was a teacher. He taught most of the license classes. Tony Limac, 9Y4 Alpha Lima. Unfortunately, cancer is a horrible disease, and he died in 2014. But he was very inspirational. very, very smart person. He was not a science teacher. He was an English teacher and he also taught music, but he knew so much about amateur radio and he just was really an inspiration to so many. If you were fortunate enough to learn from him, you learned a lot. You learned a lot and he would teach you a lot of things. This here is Arnold, 9Y4 November Golf. He owns a lot of commercial repeater sites in the hills. He runs, or he ran, I don't know if he still runs, a two-way commercial radio business. And he now is actually donating some space on those sites to amateur radio causes, especially the T-TARS repeaters and Digipeater. So he's very much into ham radio, but of course he owns commercial infrastructure. This is a typical trip up to a repeater site. Sometimes the trucks bite off more than they can chew. Gee, dump trucks all around the world drive the same way. They get into accidents and they run off the road. Sorry, but yeah, no, the roads going up to the hills are terribly maintained. I mean, generally the roads in the country are terribly maintained, but a lot of these roads are pure dirt. They're dirt roads, and imagine you're driving a truck going up to that dirt road, and you slip, and then you just off the road, and then this other truck looks like a cement truck behind him comes up there and either trying to pull you out or is just wants to get you out of the way so you can actually move. But yeah, a lot of people get stuck in that and somehow they manage to get out of it. So there's a lot of stuff going on. This here on the side here, I'll show you here. So this is like a view from one of the sites. You could see here there's a lot of you could see in the distance from on top of the hills here. You could see what it's like. You see, of course, a coconut tree. Dogs, few people put their dogs on leashes. Everybody's dogs roam around. I can see this dog is very fat. He's obviously well fed. So, people have their dogs all over the place. That's an interesting fact. But it's treacherous going up the hills. But anyway, this is Arnold's shack. He has a very well-equipped shack. You can see here he has Kenwood equipment. He likes Kenwood equipment. A lot of people, they like Kenwood equipment, by the way, in Trinidad. In America, you have ICOM. A lot of people some people use ICOM, but Kenwood equipment is very, very popular there. Right? So he has a Kenwood radio. He has, I think here you see another Kenwood radio here. And he has a tower with a tri-band beam up here. There's another antenna up here. Yes, I think he has 2 towers. And he has his mobile here with the mobile antenna. He was one of the first people with a cellular telephone, and he had a dual band mobile in his car. So you have a few others. I'm sure you work some of these people on air, especially Chris, Dev, Gwen, Mark, Noel. Well, Noel used to be an IARU, he used to be an officer of the IARU. And he actually gave me my first experience on HF on a Kenwood radio, okay? The Kenwood TS440S, which I actually have one of those radios now because I liked it so much. I wanted to keep it to show everybody. This is the first radio I used to get on HF. And you have Stevenson, 9Z4DZ. He visits me sometime. You have a few others. Frank Brooker, 954VU. The old timers will remember him. He used to host a lot of Americans for contesting. Same thing for Harry. I don't know what happened to him. It was rumored he went into religion and he just, went into other things, or maybe he just lost interest in amateur radio. Some of these guys, we have some islands. If you notice on the map, the top, the northwest, there are these little islands. These are they call them Down the Islands. And you have the Shaka Chakari Island, you have the Monos Island, and Huevos Island. So they actually went on Shaka Chakari Island to do an island expedition, field day style. The military, the regiment, which is what they call the military there, they have an installation up there, and they were able to get permission to go there. Here you can see they made a nice little drawing of what it's like. So 9x4XD, Chaka Chakari Island. Let me stop drawing on this, drawing up on the guy's drawing. Yeah, and yeah, it was a lighthouse expedition, right? So there's a lighthouse up there. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you see Nigel 9Z4EJ. He's a good friend of mine. Here you see a close-up. They put their tents, right? So this is within the military facility. They were able, and near the lighthouse, by the way, they were able to set up their tents and do the lighthouse expedition. Nigel at the mic, he's using an ICOM 718, and he has a MFJ tuner, and they're using wire antennas. A little more pictures that are set up there. They, and they have the ICOM 718. I think this one on the left side is a Yaesu FT897, I think it is. Or it could be some other, I don't know. They have that. You notice they put all their wiring and stuff in plastic boxes. Works really nice. And then you see the lighthouse. So the lighthouse has become so dilapidated. I mean, I don't think they really use a lighthouse anymore. They have it for cell phone. They have cell phone antennas on them. I don't think they really have anything else. The cell phone antennas are more for the people who are out at sea, right there, the boats. So.
Soca Mix 2020.
Carnival. We have Carnival like New Orleans. We have Carnival similar to Rio. But our Carnival is better, of course. They have a street parade, music trucks. They have in the capital city and in other major cities. They have lots of festivities. Steel band, calypso competitions. You have a pitch lake. It's a tar pit, basically. The water is full of sulfur, so supposedly it has healing properties. The legend is that the native, I believe it was the Arawaks, they angered their gods by killing hummingbirds, and then this pitch lake came up and swallowed up their whole village. That's a local legend. And then here you see the pitch lake. Of course, a lot of it has a lot of algae and stuff now. They used to actually mine this asphalt and use it to construct roads worldwide. A lot of roads worldwide, they got asphalt from this little pitch lake. You could go to Tobago by ferry. The ferry service has been kind of off and on. This is my dad here. The slot machine don't work, but he decided to take a picture. The Canadian company actually ran a ferry. I think they have a different company running it now. Here you take the boat and you could see out the back. And then when you go to Tobago, you end up in this nice place. Who doesn't want to be here? It's going to be winter soon. I should go there for the winter. Who wouldn't want to go to this, right? This is the Store Bay Pigeon Point. This is in Tobago. This used to be a nice coral reef, but as pollution and all sorts of other things happened, it kind of got deteriorated. So the water is not clear as it used to be. I remember in the 1980s, this used to be real nice, and all the colorful corals and such. You could get around using these little mini buses called maxi taxis. Just be careful. Some of these guys, they don't drive so good. They take a lot of risk when driving. It's common, I guess. You pay your fare in cash in TT dollars. You could pay in American dollars or euros, but they'll probably not give you a good exchange rate. I don't know. I really think that the intercity buses are the safest to do it, to travel with, or if you rent a car, but driving is a real adventure there. Cell phones, they have 4G cell phones, so you can use any American cell phones, they'll work there. You just get a SIM card at the airport. The Divali Nagar is a huge Indian festival. They have like a theme park they set up for that whole week, where you go and you see cultural performances and food, and boy, lots and lots of food. It's really nice. If you like birds, you see a lot of birds. This is a kiskadee bird, but there's so many different birds there. If you love birds, you will love Trinidad and Tobago. So this is doubles. This is a common street food. You buy it. Usually now I think they have people selling it out of a food truck. Back when I was there, people, a doubles man used to sell it out of a bicycle with a basket. And he gets up early in the morning to make this thing, and then he goes with his bicycle, stands up on the street corner and sells this. Kalaloo is another one you find in the local shops. Roti is basically an unleavened bread, and it's like a wrap, kind of like a tortilla, but a little different. Of course, Chinese food, they're more Cantonese food than, it's all different from American Chinese food. It's spicier and has a little different flavor. It's more Cantonese. Well, finally, things I learned as a ham you make do with little. You appreciate ham radio a little more, especially for the fact that the telecommunications infrastructure there is not as robust as it is in the United States. So they depend on us a little more for disaster communications. You have to learn to improvise and do homebrew. Being non-technical as a ham there is possible, but you really need to know your stuff. Of course, I mentioned about disaster communications. A lot of people came from the CB culture, and a lot of them actually, they went into ham radio, and they kind of adjusted and became more into the ham habits rather than the CB habits. But, radio is radio, I think. And I think a lot of people, they're not, how should I put it? It's not like, ham radio is, I guess, morally superior than CB or something, but it is a different activity, of course, and a different focus. Over there, CB radio is more about communications, just plain communications, utility communications and such that. Ham radio is more about experimentation, but both of them, they actually get together with emergency communications. And the other thing is you really need to be careful, otherwise you're out a lot of money. I need to get things imported. So one last thing, they actually did the independence celebration. I actually talked about it. I had somebody interviewed Ravindranath Goswami, Robbie 9Z4RG. He talked about where they had a special call sign 9Y59IND, and they got, I think, 6,000 contacts for that special event to celebrate their 59th year of independence. Next year for the 60th one, I already spoke to ARRL, and hopefully they could do something, with them, probably get something in QST or something like that. So it'd be interesting to talk about that. Of course, this is, in memoriam. Good guy. I miss him. All right, and that is the end of that.
Questions?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ria, this is AC2Z. Or they use 50 hertz down there or 60 hertz?
110 volt, 60 hertz.
Okay, good.
And the TV standards are NTSC.
Ria, I have two questions. First, what's the average income if we're talking about buying equipment?
Yeah, so the income is lower. It went up recently, but it's still not on par with the United States. I would say people make on average, I guess, 1/3 of what they make in the States.
Save a lot to get a rig.
Yeah, I mean that has steadily increased over the years as the economy has improved. Because when I was living there, I was in a very technical field, and I was making the equivalent of like $12,000 a year, American dollars. Okay, and I was paid okay. That is like a drop in the bucket compared to like what I make here for similar work. But the cost of living was a lot less there. Something like you go to the grocery store to buy vegetables and stuff, it costs a lot less there. But with the rise of imported goods, salaries had to go up to compensate. So
my other question is, being so close to Venezuela, have there been any people who have left because of Maduro? I know obviously in Colombia it's a major problem, but being so close, what's been the situation with immigrants?
So yes, there has been a lot of people escaping Venezuela to go to Trinidad. And I say Trinidad because Trinidad is closer. Absolutely. And there are a lot of Venezuelan refugees. The government kind of had to figure out what to do with them. They gave them some special status, and then they gave them registration. And then, the people kind of were not happy. And, there has been people leaving Venezuela. It initially started where people were going to Trinidad to buy basic supplies because they couldn't get things like soap and toilet paper, right? So they came to Trinidad via boat, and then they bought their things and they left for the day. But some of them began to come and stay because they really couldn't, the political situation there really wasn't good. And I mean, frankly, basic living conditions deteriorated. I've been to Venezuela quite a few times. There is a huge gap between the rich and the poor in Venezuela, even before Maduro, okay? Even before Chavez.
Yeah, Hugo Chavez, right?
Yeah, before Chavez, even before Chavez, there is a huge gap between the rich and the poor, and you'll find there are people who are dirt poor, and there are people who are extremely rich, right? And you'll find that has existed for a very long time, and that kind of, became like a hallmark of the country. When you have these societal breakdown, you see those things kind of amplify and cause a lot of disruption. But yeah, people did leave, and people, some people stayed. A lot of people went back because things, improved a little bit, or they get frustrated that they couldn't make a life in Trinidad. But you have a lot of them doing a lot of menial jobs and such like that. So it is definitely part of the whole equation.
Other questions?
I have a question, Greg.
Greg.
Thanks. What's internet broadband penetration? One question, and I guess related, is what about TV and media and telephone? Is there streaming? Are they plugged into the same kind of media environment that we are here, or how does it compare?
Yeah, so they actually have very good internet infrastructure. They have most of the country is served by broadband, right, through cable or fiber optic. They have cellular broadband too available. So they have quite a good penetration of broadband. They have this company, Columbus Communications, they ran fiber optic cables, and they connected with nearby countries. Curacao, I think, was when they connected nearby, and then they were able to get fiber optic connections to the United States. So there is a lot of broadband infrastructure there. As far as television, they get most of the American TV channels. They get a lot of American media, and that's good and bad, because I think that has kind of Americanized a lot of society. I love America, but the thing is, Trinidad is changing and becoming like America. So it's,
do you mean polarized, like CNN, Fox, and little?
No, I mean people are worried more about American cultural trends and trends in Trinidad and Tobago. It used to be like when I was growing up, people were more focused on local, but today they're more focused on the Kardashians and all that kind of stuff.
Americanization of the world, so.
Right. Yeah, our cultural influence in America is huge. But yeah, no, they have a lot of that. They have when I was down there, when I visited down there, I was able to catch up on all my TV shows here. And yeah, what was the other question regarding that? Telecommunications? Yeah, they have they have cell phones, they have fiber optic broadband, they have cable broadband, they have a lot of stuff,
Do they have
other questions? Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, Ria, do they have the same categories of licenses as we do in frequencies?
So they have 3 licenses. There's a foundation license, which is for youth, right? They're more like the UK, I think. So the foundation license is for youth. And then they have an intermediate license, which is, they call that a general license, which is basically full privileges except for Morse code for some reason. And then they have an advanced license, which is the highest level of license, which really doesn't offer much different privilege.
What about the frequency bands? Are they the same frequency bands that we do?
Most of them are the same. Yeah, I would say they're they're almost identical. They're they follow the IARU region 2, right? ITU region 2. So they have all the HF bands. The only thing is, I think power levels on some of the higher VHF bands are lower, but they tend to follow the same bands the United States have. The only difference is that they don't have the same mode restrictions we do. So like they could operate, they're not restricted to operate just CW and phone on different parts of the band. They could operate anything anywhere.
Oh, okay, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? I've got one, just I don't want to belabor, but unrelated, back to Venezuela. Has Maduro, from what you know, tried to do anything to clamp down in terms of amateur activity? I mean, I see a lot of hams, and I often wonder whether it's more like Cuba or whether hams really have a good deal of operating freedom. Do you know anything about that?
So From what I gather, I don't think there's been a lot of clamp down on amateur radio. I think to begin with, Venezuelan hams. So, all right. So if you talk with a ham in some countries, right, you could basically, and this is no joke, the only thing you could really tell them is 5'9", I'm using this equipment and that equipment, right?
Yep.
I don't think you could talk politics with a Venezuelan ham.
Right. It's safe to say, right?
Right. You know what I mean? Because I don't know what they did with dissidents or whatever, but they don't have freedom of speech like we do. But
You see a lot of activity.
Yeah, I don't think they really restricted radio outreach. I know Cuba, Cuba kind of, they jammed the whole 40-meter band. I think they're still jamming the 40-meter band. They're really not doing any such thing. They had, as a matter of fact, YV5 AM, a prominent ham there, and you had a lot of hams in Venezuela were actually involved in World Amateur Radio Affairs. So they had a lot of amateur radio privileges, but like I said, they were probably discouraged from talking politics.
Other questions? Ria, this has been a great hour, okay, in terms of educating us on the league and a real amateur log and travel log on Trinidad and Tobago. Really great stuff. So, and also I think, we've got an international visitor here today from India with Sudeepta, who's checked back in. And we also briefly had, this is the first time we've had sort of a really multi-continent presentation. We had Ahmed from Ecuador check in and then check out. So we had an international audience for you today. So.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I try to, so even in my videos, I try to not make it American centric because I realize amateur radio is a global hobby. And in my talks and such, unless it's ARRL focused, I try to, make it globally relevant too. So it's
certainly was. Good. So any final questions or comments before we say goodnight?
So one comment I do have is that right now the borders are kind of closed a little bit due to the virus. I know they had strict lockdown before, but now they kind of relaxed that a little bit. We'll see how that goes. I might go back sometime to visit and do some business there. If I do, I'll be taking plenty of video, I hope.
And share it with us back here at the club. So
absolutely, yes, I will.
So thank you all. Thank you all for coming tonight. Okay, don't forget that our next presentation will be on October 15th, and it'll be Kent Britton, WA5 VJB, talking about all you need to know about Yagi antennas. With that, let me say 73s, and thanks to Ria once again for a great presentation.